My name is Hassan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, Shorts. There's no co-host on these Shorts episodes. We have extended the time on these shorter episodes from 5 to 6 minutes to 15 to 20 minutes for this season. This is so that these shorts can serve as introductory episodes released ahead of our weekly, longer form episodes. But don't worry, I will still let you know my observations, ideas, thoughts, or rants about the literature, philosophy, psychology, and even the theology of leadership, particularly as we prepare for the restoration of leadership and leadership principles during the next historical high in America. Why these episodes? Well, because listening to me talk about leadership for now around 15 to 20 minutes is still better than reading and trying to understand yet another business book. Even that business book that you bought with that famous person's name as the author, but you haven't applied any of the principles from that book to your leadership practices. At least not yet. In our benighted times, we think that we are too smart to be taken in with quote-unquote fake news. The problem with this appellation, calling news fake, is that we are confused as to what constitutes that which is fake because we are confused as to what constitutes the truth. That there are many versions of the truth no one really seriously disagrees with. That idea goes all the way back to the Greeks at least. However, people tend to go further in a postmodern context and seek to give the weight or grant the weight of seriousness to the idea that all truths have equal weight, which of course means that all truths contain no truth at all. And then from that point, we might as well call every piece of information fake and just be done with it in order to eliminate the psychological frustration of engaging in the complication of critical thinking. You know, that thing that causes us to determine what's fake and what's actually the truth. And then, of course, come the commands, right, from the propagandists and the people who benefit from all this. Don't think, just consume more slop. Don't think, just consume more product. Don't think, just do what you're told. Don't think, just enjoy your life in pursuit of stultifying pleasures. Thus, we get to the idea of conventional wisdom. A wise man many years ago stated that, quote, "The primary problem with conventional wisdom is that it's conventional before it's deemed wisdom." And when we combine the nature of conventional wisdom with the fact that critical thinking is hard in the media and messaging world of seemingly easy answers and pre-digested pablum, we arrive at an intersection where actual wisdom is not, heck, even cannot, be acknowledged, and where serious people seeking to pursue wisdom are drowned in a sea of unserious slop. This is particularly sharp when we come to shibboleths that exist that cannot be questioned around the space of identity. You know, the places where race, gender, and sexual orientation inevitably intersect with culture and politics. Why am I saying all this? Why are we bringing all this up? Well, as we go into February, we are covering 3 authors on the podcast this month whose writing fits the mold of questioning conventional wisdom encouraging critical thinking and exposing the difference between what is pretend and what is real, particularly if that hurts your feelings. Our first author this month is Coleman Hughes. Coleman Cruz Hughes, born February 25th, 1996, is an American writer and podcast host. He was a fellow at the Manhattan Institute for Policy Research and a fellow and contributing editor at their magazine, which I do subscribe to and do occasionally read, City Journal. He is also the host of the podcast Conversations with Coleman, and as of February 2026, he is a visiting professor at the University of Austin. We're going to be talking about the work of Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell was born June 30th, 1930. He is an American economist, economic historian, and social theorist. With widely published commentary and books, and as a guest on TV and radio, he is a well-known voice in the American conservative movement as a prominent black conservative. He is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution and was a recipient of the National Humanities Medal from President George W. Bush about 24, almost 25 years ago. Sowell is the author of more than 45 books, including revised and new editions, on a variety of subjects, including politics, economics, education, and, of course, race. And he has been a syndicated columnist in more than 150 newspapers for well over the last 20 years. Finally, we'll be looking at the work of and exploring the life of Albert Murray. Albert L. Murray, born May 12, 1916, and he died August 18, 2013, was an American literary and music critic, novelist, essayist, and biographer. His books include The Omni-Americans, which we covered previously on episode number 140, South to a Very Old Place, and Stomping the Blues. Friend to Ralph Ellison, visiting lecturer at multiple universities, international traveler due to his time and his service in the United States Air Force, and a man with a deep understanding of exactly what was going on with racial sorting in America in the mid-20th century, Albert Murray, I think Stanley Crouch and Henry Louis Gates would agree with this appellation, was an unrecognized titan, even in his own time. We will be looking at these three authors and looking at their books because these authors either are or have become writers, intellectuals, and thinkers whose ideas are never argued against, just argued about. They are people who buck conventional wisdom because they see that the quote-unquote minority report actually should be the majority report, because it contains the true ideas that must be critically examined, addressed, and answered in order to determine what is the truth around identity versus what we would like to be the truth. They also represent, in their public and private stances, the best of what America has to offer from deep in the past and well into the future, as we continue to wrestle with the two questions we've always wrestled with in this country's national identity. Question number one, what kind of country do we want to have? And question number two, and we're really wrestling with this one right now, what kind of people exactly do we want to be? Of course, we are now 25 years into this 21st century, and the hangover from the last century is finally, violently, and with a lot of metaphorical vomiting and shakes, breaking in a lot of areas: economic, political, social, and even cultural. A new question, of course, now begins to emerge, hazily at first, from the zeitgeist that will probably be the most challenging question we have ever asked ourselves in the history of this nation. And we have the rest of the century to articulate this question and actually begin to answer it. And the question is this: what will we do exactly with the thing we have won? That thing called our American identity. To quote from the social commentator, economist, and podcaster Glenn Loury, whose books we will eventually cover on this show as well, during a conversation he had a couple of years ago on his podcast with his sometimes co-host, the linguist John McWhorter, Glenn asked this question, or he made this point, which I think is relevant for us going into February and reading the types of authors we're reading. The point was this: at some point, and he was talking about African Americans, by the way, at some point we're just going to have to admit that we're Americans. No hyphen necessary. At what point are we going to make a plan for peace? At what point are we all just going to be multicolored Americans? Not black or white or Latino or Asian, just multicolored Americans. To get to the answer to the questions of one, what kind of country do we want to have? And two, what kind of people do we want to be? I think I would propose a sort of cultural NATO or a sort of cultural UN for negotiating social axioms and for talking honestly in ways that we apparently can't about the shibboleths of identity, race, and gender. We also need a place for the edge cases to exist, who are moving more and more over the last 25 years towards the center of our conversation and our zeitgeist. This is because the social media organizations can't do it. We thought they would, but their platforms divide. They're almost exclusively designed to divide, to ensure that ad dollars continue to roll in, that attention spans continue to deteriorate, and that genuine discourse becomes so impossible that it seems the very fabric of the country is coming apart at the seams all the time. Or at least it seemed like that if you stay inside the social media ghettos that they have so luxuriously allowed you to doom scroll in. Now, as I record this is February of 2026, and you may listen to this later in some other context, but in February 2026, I must admit, I'm not ignorant of the fact that currently in our country, half the nation voted for a candidate who promised to stop illegal immigration using every legal means necessary, and the other half of the country voted for a candidate who merely gave lip service to a problem that she was incapable of actually understanding. I am also aware that the people screaming the loudest to preserve immigration of all kinds into this country, and the group of people whose silence is the loudest on the processes used to limit all types of immigration into this country, are both trapped in the same cultural and geographic house. This has implications, of course, that will reverberate far and wide for leaders, and not just political leaders, well into the remaining years of this 21st century. By the way, I have no answer for what to do about that, but maybe that cultural UN or cultural NATO can sort of get us to an answer. What do leaders do about all this? What are leaders to take from the books that we are reading this month and the ideas that we are exploring around race and identity, and about what it means to actually be American and what kind of Americans do we actually want to be? Well, I think for leaders, when worldview, vision, culture, and politics are aligned in the appropriate order, race and ethnic identity won't factor into the overall equation of living, breathing, and leading. What leaders can lead on most effectively, starting right now today, is for their followers to be aligned in the right order and encouraging the hard work of either realignment or getting aligned in the first place. First, with themselves internally, and then scaling out to the nation state last. This is the best advice I have here at the opening of February, which is, of course, Black History Month in the United States of America. Minority Report conclusions, all. And well, that's it for me. Are you ready to elevate your leadership journey through exploring the wisdom of the ages? Subscribe to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast on all major podcast platforms, including Apple iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube Music. You can also find us everywhere else podcasts are available. If you find value in our episodes, please leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. We need those reviews to grow, and it is truly the easiest way to help other leaders and lovers of literature discover this show. And thank you for your support.